Hold me like you mean it, she said, not knowing the stranger was a billionaire about to rewrite her fate. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Rain poured down over the parking lot behind the downtown hotel, turning the pavement into rivers of light. Maya Lopez pulled her jacket tighter, her heels slipping on the wet asphalt. She had just been fired from her job at the event agency after defending a coworker, and the sting of humiliation was still raw. The night air smelled like metal and rain, her breath trembling in the cold. She reached her beat-up Honda, ready to collapse, when a voice behind her cut through the storm. Miss Lopez. She froze. A tall man stood beneath a black umbrella, the kind that looked expensive enough to buy a month's rent. His suit was immaculate despite the rain. His gaze steady, unreadable, met hers. You do not know me, he said calmly, but I have an offer that could solve all your problems. We just vermused their app downer to the Botterworken. Maya let out a bitter laugh. You picked the wrong night to sell me something. The man stepped closer. The rain glimmered on his shoulders like shards of glass. My name is Ethan Ward. The name rang a faint bell. Somewhere in her memory articles, headlines, Carter and Ward Holdings, the tech empire worth billions. But before she could process it, he handed her an envelope. Inside was a contract, printed on heavy paper that smelled faintly of ink and cologne. Her eyes skimmed the first line. Agreement of temporary engagement, effective immediately. She looked up, stunned. Is this some kind of joke? Ethan's tone did not waver. I need someone to pose as my fiancé for 1 month. In return, you will receive $100,000. No strings attached. Lightning cracked behind him, illuminating his face for a brief, surreal second. His jaw was sharp, his eyes too steady, the kind of man who was used to getting exactly what he wanted. Maya's heart pounded. Why me? Because you were at tonight's gala, he said simply, and you walked away when everyone else was trying to get close. That tells me something about you. She blinked, soaked and breathless. You are serious? Completely. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain tapping against the car roof. The envelope trembled in her hands. Let me guess, she said quietly, trying to keep her voice from shaking. You need to clean up your image for the board or prove you are still a family man for investors. Ethan did not deny it. Something like that. Maya took a step back. I am not interested in being anyone's prop. He studied her, then, in one sudden motion, reached for her arm, not roughly, but firmly, and pulled her beneath his umbrella. The closeness startled her, his warmth, the smell of cedar and rain. In the distance, flashes from a camera pierced the dark. Paparazzi, he muttered under his breath. They cannot see us arguing. Just act like you know me. Shit not body say as a pass in Dil bless. Before she could protest, his arm circled her waist, holding her close. His voice dropped to a whisper, calm but commanding. Pretend. Maya's breath hitched. The cameras clicked, a dozen lights exploding in the rain. His chest rose against hers, steady, unreal. Her voice trembled. Hold me like you mean it. He did. For a heartbeat, the chaos around them vanished. No rain, no cameras, only the steady rhythm of his breath and the strange safety she felt in his arms. Then he released her, as if waking from a trance. You should think about the offer, he said softly. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. Suite 41A Ward Tower. It is live in from Gaim of you not on now way were, but it be televal in Bada Ray Souse. And just like that, he was gone, swallowed by the night and the sound of rain, leaving her standing in the empty parking lot with the contract still in her hand, her heart thundering with a question she could not yet name. Maya barely slept that night. The rain kept whispering against her window, steady and merciless, like a reminder of the impossible choice waiting for her. On her kitchen table lay the contract, edges curled from the damp air. Ethan Ward's signature, a sharp slash of ink across the page. $100,000. It was the kind of number that made her dizzy. Her younger brother, Daniel, slept in the next room. The sound of his shallow breathing steadied her, but the thought of his unpaid hospital bills made her chest ache. He needed another surgery within 2 weeks. Insurance had already denied it twice. Maya rubbed her temples, staring at the contract again. Every moral instinct screamed no, but reality whispered louder. At sunrise, she made her decision. The lobby of Ward Tower gleamed with marble floors and silver elevators. People in tailored suits moved with purpose, their voices hushed, their coffee orders brisk. Maya felt completely out of place in her thrift store coat and worn shoes, clutching the envelope like a confession. The receptionist's tone softened when Maya gave her name. "Mr. Ward is expecting you, top floor." The elevator ride felt endless. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked like someone else, pale, nervous, small. When the doors slid open, she found herself in a world of glass and steel, a city skyline stretching endlessly beyond the windows. Ethan stood near his desk, reviewing documents on a sleek tablet. He looked exactly the same as the night before, controlled, unreadable, like he had been carved from the same metal that framed the building. "You came," he said, setting the tablet down. "I am not sure if I should have," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. "I assume you read the agreement." "I did." She hesitated. "It is insane." "Most good deals are," he said, almost smiling. "But I can assure you everything is legal and protected. You will receive half the payment up front and the rest upon completion." She frowned. "Completion of what exactly?" He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "For the next 30 days, you will accompany me to 5 official events as my fiancé, public appearances only. In return, I will handle your brother's medical expenses immediately." The words landed like a weight on her heart. "You know about Daniel?" "I do my research," Ethan said simply. "This arrangement benefits both of us. You get financial stability. I get temporary credibility with the board. After 30 days, we go our separate ways. No personal involvement." Maya's throat tightened. "You mean no feelings?" "Exactly." His eyes flickered for a moment, as if the word itself unsettled him. She looked at the folder again, her hands trembling. "And if I refuse? Then I find someone else," he said, his tone flat. "But I chose you for a reason. You are genuine. People see that." For a long time, she said nothing. The clock on the wall ticked softly, the city humming below. Finally, she reached for the pen. "Fine," she said. "I will do it. When Shuwanzi." Ethan handed her a second envelope. Inside was a cashier's check made out to the hospital and a sleek key card embossed with a gold emblem. "What is this?" she asked. "Your new residence for the next month," he said. "Suite 29, Parkview Residences. The press will expect us to live together. Separate rooms, of course." Maya blinked, speechless. "You thought of everything." "I plan ahead," he said simply. "Our first appearance is tomorrow night at the Willow Foundation Gala. You will need a stylist. I will have my assistant send one this afternoon." She stood, clutching the contract to her chest. "And what do I tell my brother?" "Tell him you got a promotion," Ethan replied quietly. Their eyes met hers, uncertain, his impossible to read. Something flickered there, a brief warmth quickly smothered by restraint. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Maya?" he said. She looked back. He held out a small velvet box. "You will need this." Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a diamond that caught the morning light and threw it across the glass walls like fire. Her voice wavered. "It looks real." "It is," Ethan said. "Everything about this must look real." She slipped the ring on her finger. It felt heavy, colder than she expected. That evening, back in her small apartment, Maya packed her few belongings into an old suitcase. Daniel peeked through the doorway, still in his hospital wristband. "You look different," he said softly. "Are you okay?" Maya smiled, forcing the lie to sound light. "I just got a new job. It is going to help us." He grinned. Finally, some good news. When he hugged her, she closed her eyes, fighting the sting behind them. Later, as she stepped into the taxi waiting outside, she looked down at the ring on her hand, the glint of wealth against the calluses of a working life. It felt like crossing a line she could never uncross. Through the window, the city blurred past, bright and cold. Somewhere at the top of a tower, Ethan Ward was likely reviewing another contract, calm as ever. But for Maya, this one was not just ink and paper. It was a pact with fate itself, one she had just signed, with her heart still trembling. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the windows of Parkview residences. Everything in the apartment gleamed: marble counters, polished floors, silver-framed photographs of people Maya did not know. She stood near the balcony in disbelief. Just 24 hours ago, she had been worried about rent and hospital bills. Now, she was living in a penthouse that overlooked the skyline. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Ward, stylist, will arrive at 10. Do not be late. EW. The message was as precise as the man himself. Maya sighed, glancing at the diamond on her finger. It sparkled in the morning light like a secret she could not tell. At 10 sharp, the doorbell rang. A stylish woman in black heels swept inside, carrying garment bags and a tablet. I am Elise, Mr. Ward's image consultant, she said briskly. We have a gala tonight. You will need to look perfect. For the next 2 hours, Maya was measured, fitted, and transformed. The reflection in the mirror no longer looked like the girl from the rain-soaked parking lot. She wore a sleek, midnight blue gown, her hair twisted into soft waves, her makeup subtle but striking. Elise nodded in approval. Now you look like someone who belongs beside Ethan Ward. It's people. The words lingered uncomfortably in her chest. By evening, a private car took her to the Ward estate where Ethan was waiting. He stood near the staircase, wearing a tailored black suit and a silver tie that matched his eyes. For a moment, he seemed carved from the same marble as the lobby floor, elegant, distant, untouchable. When he saw her, he paused. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. You clean up well, he said. Thank you, Maya replied, trying to sound composed. He extended his arm. Remember, we have one goal tonight. Appear convincing. No unnecessary conversation with the press. Stay close to me. 8 times of remember past. She nodded, slipping her hand into the crook of his arm. His warmth startled her, the steady rhythm of his breath, the quiet confidence that drew every gaze in the room as they entered the waiting limousine. The Willow Foundation Gala was held in a grand ballroom, glittering with chandeliers and laughter. Cameras flashed, glasses clinked, and every face seemed perfectly rehearsed. Maya felt the weight of 100 eyes the moment they stepped through the doors. Reporters whispered. Flashes erupted. Ethan smiled politely, guiding her forward. Relax, he murmured under his breath. You are doing fine. A woman in a red gown approached, her smile too sharp to be kind. Ethan, darling, you never told us you were engaged, she exclaimed. And who is this lovely creature? Maya's throat went dry. Ethan replied smoothly. This is Maya Lopez, my fiancée. We prefer to keep our private life quiet. The woman's eyes narrowed with curiosity. How romantic, she said, lingering a second too long before walking away. Maya exhaled. Do they always stare like that? They are not staring at you, Ethan said, eyes scanning the crowd. They are staring at what they cannot control. For the next hour, she smiled until her cheeks hurt, answering polite questions and pretending her heart was not racing. But when the event's host invited Ethan to speak about his company's charitable programs, Maya watched him step into the spotlight, confident and composed. His voice carried easily across the room. At Ward Holdings, we believe that wealth means little if it does not build something. Lasting, hope, access, opportunity. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire or the businessman, but the man behind the title. His sincerity caught her off guard. When their eyes met across the crowd, something unspoken passed between them, something real. As the applause thundered, Ethan returned to her side. You handled yourself perfectly, he said quietly. Maya smiled faintly. Maybe I am getting used to pretending. He looked at her, the hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Maybe you are not pretending as much as you think. For a moment, the world around them blurred: the chandeliers, the noise, the endless cameras. And under that golden light, Maya realized something she had not expected. The line between what was real and what was contract was beginning to fade. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of the penthouse. The city outside was already awake, horns, footsteps, the faint hum of ambition, but inside, everything was still. Maya sat at the kitchen island, her untouched coffee growing cold. She kept replaying last night's gala in her head, Ethan's steady hand on her back, the cameras flashing, his words about purpose and integrity. He had meant them. She could feel it. The sound of footsteps pulled her back to the present. Ethan entered the room, wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. For the first time, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man simply trying to breathe between meetings. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied. "You did well last night." Everyone was impressed. His brow lifted slightly. "You were impressive. The board called me this morning. They loved you." Maya smiled faintly, then hesitated. "That woman in red, the one who kept looking at me, who is she?" Ethan's expression shifted, guarded. "Clara Beaumont. She is an investor. She does not like surprises. Or competition," Maya added quietly. He gave a small, humorless laugh. "Something like that." He moved to pour himself coffee but paused. "I have a meeting this afternoon. Charity board. You are welcome to join if you want to understand what you are representing." Maya looked up, surprised. "You want me there?" He met her eyes. "If we are going to make this believable, you should know my world. Besides," his voice softened, "you might have ideas worth hearing." Carry a god. That afternoon, the conference room on the 35th floor was all glass and sunlight. Executives in sleek suits lined the table, their attention fixed on Ethan as he reviewed projections and community impact numbers. Maya sat quietly beside him, taking notes, her curiosity genuine. When one of the directors questioned the need for continued funding of a children's rehabilitation center, Maya spoke before she could stop herself. "Because those programs save lives," she said. "My brother spent months in one after his accident. It gave him hope when everything else was gone." The room fell silent. Ethan turned toward her, expression unreadable. After a beat, he nodded. Exactly what she said. Meeting adjourned. As the others filed out, Maya stared at the polished table, embarrassed. "I am sorry. I should not have interrupted." Ethan's tone was gentle. "Do not apologize. You were right." He paused, studying her. "You talk about hope like someone who has lost it before." Maya met his gaze. "Maybe because I have." Something flickered between them, raw, unguarded. For a brief second, the distance between billionaire and ordinary woman disappeared. That evening, they drove together to the Ward Foundation's rooftop garden for a private dinner hosted by the board. Strings of golden lights glowed above the tables, and soft jazz floated in the air. The city stretched out beneath them, endless and bright. Maya stood at the railing, the wind lifting strands of her hair. "It feels like another world up here," she whispered. Ethan joined her, hands resting on the railing beside hers. "It is easy to forget how far the ground is until you look down," he said. She glanced at him. "You sound like someone who has been up here too long." He smiled faintly, then grew quiet. "Maybe. When you build an empire, you start losing sight of why you built it." Maya turned to face him. "Then start looking again." For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights painted gold reflections in his eyes. He took a slow breath, then reached into his pocket, pulling out her keycard. "You can decorate your suite however you want. Make it feel less temporary." Her voice was soft. "You are making it sound like you want me to stay longer than a month." Ethan's gaze lingered on her face. "Maybe I do." Maya's pulse quickened, but before she could answer, the host called Ethan back to the table. He straightened his jacket, his composure returning like armor. "We should go," he said. As they walked away, she caught her reflection in the glass doors, his hand resting lightly at her back, her own smile barely visible. For the first time, she was not sure if she was still acting. The following day began too early. Sunlight slipped through the curtains of the penthouse and touched everything: the pale marble counters, the silver handles, even the ring still on Maya's hand. She sat with a half-cold cup of coffee, staring at the skyline she could never have imagined belonging to. Ethan appeared, sleeves rolled, the usual composure softened by sleep. "Morning," he said. She nodded. "You were incredible last night. Everyone was watching you." "They were watching us," he corrected. "The board called this morning. They approved the charity expansion. You helped." Her smile was small but real. Then curiosity slipped through. "That woman in red, the one who kept circling us, who is she?" "Clara Beaumont," he answered after a pause. "Investor, old friend of the family. She enjoys control, and I just ruined that for her." Maya looked away. She looked at me like I was a mistake. Ethan poured coffee and handed her a mug. "You are not a mistake. You are a choice." The words startled her more than she wanted to admit. That afternoon, he invited her to a board meeting of the Ward Foundation. The conference room was glass and light, a panorama of the city below. Ethan spoke in the measured tone of a man born to lead. She listened, silent but absorbing every detail. When a gray-haired director questioned the need for continuing funds for a children's therapy center, Ethan began to answer, but Maya found her voice first. "Those centers matter," she said. "My brother spent months in one after his accident. It is not charity, it is dignity." The room stilled. Ethan turned to her, surprise flickering in his eyes before he nodded slowly. "Well said," he replied. Meeting adjourned. As the others filed out, Maya exhaled. "I probably overstepped." He shook his head. "You reminded them why we started. That is something I forget too often." That night, a dinner for donors filled the rooftop garden with golden lights. Jazz floated over the clinking of glasses. Maya stood near the railing, wind teasing her hair, the entire city glittering below. "It feels like flying," she murmured. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets. "Except there is no parachute," he said quietly. She glanced at him. "You sound like someone who is afraid of falling." He smiled, tired but genuine. "Maybe I am. But lately it does not sound as terrifying." They stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of his arm against hers. For a moment the noise of the party faded, the laughter, the music, the world below. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "UST. So many the world. For reminding me that all of this," he gestured at the glittering skyline, "means nothing if you forget the people who are still trying to reach it." Her heart fluttered, unsteady. "You do not have to thank me for that." He looked at her for a long second, then said, "You make pretending look real." Maya met his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe it is." A waiter passed by, calling them back to the table, breaking the fragile stillness. Ethan straightened, mask returning. But as they walked back beneath the lights, his hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that burned longer than it should. And somewhere deep inside, Maya realized the contract was no longer the only thing binding them. The following week unfolded like a dream that did not belong to Maya. Every morning began with calls from stylists, event schedules, and Ethan's assistants briefing her on where to stand, what to say, and which stories to avoid. Every night ended with the quiet hum of luxury she still did not feel at home in. Yet, somewhere between those moments, she began to notice the man behind the headlines. Ethan Ward was disciplined to the bone, up at 5, gym by 6, board meetings before sunrise, and charity reviews before dinner. But it was the in-between moments that surprised her. The way he lingered a second longer when she laughed. The way his expression softened when she spoke about Daniel. The way he always carried his late mother's silver watch in his pocket and checked it when he thought no one noticed. The contract said no emotions. Reality was beginning to rewrite that line. The evening of the Carter Innovations launch arrived, a public event filled with press, investors, and journalists from every major outlet. The ballroom shimmered with blue and gold lights, the company's emblem projected across the high ceilings. Maya stood beside Ethan at the entrance, the cameras already flashing. "Remember," he murmured, adjusting his cufflinks. "Stay calm, keep smiling, and hold my hand when we walk in." She gave a nervous laugh. "I am not sure which of those will be harder." Ethan's lips curved slightly. "You will do fine." When the doors opened, they stepped into a sea of light. Reporters shouted questions, flashes exploded, and the sound of their names rippled through the crowd. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, grounding her. Together they crossed the red carpet like a couple born to the spotlight. At the main table, Ethan was pulled into conversation after conversation, industry leaders, senators, tech giants. Maya smiled politely, answering questions about how they met, repeating the rehearsed story. A charity dinner, mutual interests, shared values. But when a young reporter asked, "When did you know he was the one?" the script vanished from her mind. For a heartbeat, she forgot the cameras. She looked at Ethan, his focus, his calm, the small crease near his temple when he was thinking. Her voice came out softer than she intended. "I guess I just knew." Ethan turned, surprise flickering across his face. The flashbulbs went off like fireworks. Later that night, after the speeches and toasts, Maya stepped out onto the terrace to breathe. The city stretched below, endless and alive. Behind her, she heard the door slide open. "You handled yourself perfectly," Ethan said, joining her. Maya turned to him, her dress catching the light. "I almost slipped." "You did not notice?" "I did," he said quietly. You recovered beautifully. There was a pause, filled only by the hum of traffic far below. You are not used to praise, are you? Ethan asked. She shook her head. I am not used to being seen. He studied her, the city's glow reflected in his eyes. Then maybe you have been standing in the wrong light. Maya looked away, her chest tightening. Do not say things like that. Why not? Because this is temporary. You made that rule. And for in the long gone, his voice lowered. Maybe I regret that rule. Before she could respond, a voice interrupted them. Clara Beaumont stepped onto the terrace, her smile sharp and polished. There you are, Ethan. Everyone is wondering where the happy couple disappeared to. Her gaze slid toward Maya, appraising. You certainly photograph well, Miss Lopez. Almost like a professional. Maya straightened. Thank you. Clara's tone dripped with sweetness. Though I must admit, you are quite a mystery. No one seems to know anything about you. Where exactly did you meet again? Ethan's jaw tightened, but Maya spoke first. At a charity event for the Willow Foundation. I was volunteering. Clara's eyebrows lifted. How noble. And now, engaged to a billionaire in just a few weeks. Some girls have all the luck. 9. Ethan cut in smoothly. Luck has nothing to do with it. Some people simply deserve what others cannot buy. The silence that followed was sharp. Clara's smile faltered. Of course, she said finally, and with a curt nod she left. Maya exhaled slowly. You did not have to defend me. Yes, I did, Ethan said. People like her think kindness is weakness. She met his eyes. And what do you think it is? His answer came without hesitation. Strength? Hours later, back at the penthouse, Maya removed her heels and dropped onto the couch, exhausted. Ethan poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. You were remarkable tonight, he said. Even the press loved you. But be careful. Clara will not stop there. Maya looked up. You think she will try to expose the contract? I think she already suspects it. Their eyes met, a long, unspoken tension stretching between them. Ethan took a slow breath. If things go wrong, I will handle it. You have done nothing wrong, Maya. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. Neither have you. He reached for the glass in her hand, setting it aside, his fingers brushing hers for just a second too long. Get some rest, he said softly. Tomorrow will be harder. Sleaze. 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 We have that. When he turned away, Maya caught her reflection in the window, the skyline behind her, the diamond ring glinting under the city lights, and she could not tell anymore whether it symbolized a promise, a lie, or something heartbreakingly real. Days turned into weeks, and the boundaries between contract and connection began to blur. The cameras no longer made Maya nervous, and Ethan no longer rehearsed his smiles. Their act had become a rhythm polished in public, quiet and unspoken in private. Yet behind closed doors, the silence between them carried more truth than the words they shared in front of a crowd. One late evening, after a long charity event downtown, the driver dropped them off at the penthouse. The city lights shimmered through the glass walls as Ethan loosened his tie and unbuttoned his cuffs. Maya kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch. Exhaustion painted across her face. You did well tonight, he said softly, pouring water for both of them. So did you, she replied, smiling faintly. You managed to shake hands with 3 senators without rolling your eyes. That must have been hard. A quiet laugh escaped him, rare and real. Do not tell anyone. It will ruin my reputation. Maya chuckled, her voice warm. I think your reputation is safe, and is probably too present. For a while they sat there in easy silence. The city pulsed beneath them, the sound of distant traffic like a steady heartbeat. Do you ever get tired of all this? She asked finally. Ethan looked up. All what? The pretending, the power plays, the endless noise. He studied her, his expression thoughtful. Every day, he admitted. But when you build something that big, it becomes its own cage. Everyone thinks you are free, but they do not see the bars. Maya's gaze softened. Then why keep living inside it? He hesitated before answering. Because I have never found anything worth breaking out for. The words lingered between them. For a moment, the air shifted. She could feel the truth pressing at the edges of the silence. Maya stood and walked toward the balcony, the night air brushing against her skin. Maybe you just have not looked hard enough. Ethan followed her out. The city glowed below, endless windows reflecting the same storm inside them. When my father died, he said quietly. I promised I would never lose control again. Love, emotions, they make people weak. I watched him destroy everything because of it. Maya turned to face him. Maybe it was not love that destroyed him. Maybe it was loneliness. Ethan looked at her, then really looked. You talk like someone who understands that too well. I do, she whispered. After my father left, I watched my mother fall apart trying to pretend everything was fine. That is what loneliness does. It teaches you how to fake being strong. For a long moment, they just stood there. The city reflected in their eyes. Ethan reached for her hand, hesitant but sincere. You do not have to pretend with me. Her heart stumbled in her chest. Neither do you. The wind caught her hair, brushing it across her face. Without thinking, he reached up and tucked it behind her ear. His touch was gentle, deliberate. Maya, he said, her name falling like a confession. She could barely breathe. This is not part of the contract. I know. We have you at not like 9. Then he leaned in, slow enough to give her time to stop him, but she did not. The world outside vanished as his lips brushed hers, soft, uncertain, and real. When they finally pulled apart, Maya stepped back, trembling. We should not have done that. Ethan's voice was quiet, unguarded. Tell me you did not want it. She opened her mouth, but the words would not come. Instead, she turned toward the door, her voice breaking. This changes everything. The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. A message from Ethan. Meeting at 9. Come if you can. She hesitated before replying, her heart still heavy with confusion. The memory of last night clung to her like the faint scent of rain. At the office, Ethan looked every bit the composed CEO again. No trace of vulnerability, no sign of what had passed between them. But when their eyes met, something flickered, something neither of them could hide. After the meeting, he walked her to the elevator. About last night, he began, his voice low. You do not have to worry. I will respect whatever boundary you want. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you. But as the elevator doors closed, she caught her reflection, her hand brushing the ring, the one that had started this entire lie. And for the first time, she realized she no longer knew where the act ended and where her heart began. That night, as she sat by Daniel's hospital bed, he smiled up at her. You seem different lately, he said. Happier. Maya hesitated, then smiled faintly. Maybe I am. He grinned. Is it because of him? She looked out the window, the city glowing in the distance, and whispered, I do not know. But deep down, she did. Because every time Ethan looked at her now, it was not the look of a man keeping a promise. It was the look of someone breaking every rule he had ever made. The following days unfolded with a fragile calm, the kind that felt too perfect to last. Ethan had grown quieter, more thoughtful. His usual sharp edges softened around her. Maya tried to keep her distance, to remind herself this was still a contract, but every look, every accidental touch, kept rewriting the rules they had agreed on. On a gray Friday morning, the illusion began to crack. She was sitting in the penthouse reading messages from Daniel's doctor when the television in the background caught her attention. The morning talk show host spoke with excitement, and in breaking news, sources claim Ethan Ward's engagement might not be as perfect as it seems. Rumors of a secret contract have surfaced. Stay tuned for details. Maya froze. Her coffee cup slipped from her hand, shattering against the marble floor. Moments later, her phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. Do not open the news, his voice said the moment she answered. Come to the office now. By the time she arrived at Ward Tower, the lobby was chaos, reporters outside, flashes bursting through the glass, assistants rushing everywhere. Ethan stood in the center of it all, calm but furious, his phone pressed to his ear. When he saw her, he hung up immediately. They got it, he said. The contract. The entire story. Maya's stomach dropped. How? I do not know yet, but I can guess. His jaw tightened. Clara. She stepped closer. Ethan, what do we do? Nothing, he said flatly. I will take care of it. But they will blame you. They already are. He rubbed his temples, frustration flickering through his composure. They think I paid you to fake a relationship to boost my image. The board is calling for an emergency review. Investors are pulling out. Maya's voice trembled. Then tell them the truth, that it was just a business deal. He looked at her, eyes unreadable. And make them believe I used you? That I turned a woman's desperation into a transaction? No, Maya. I will not let them drag you through this. Her chest tightened. But you will lose everything. It. He gave a faint, tired smile. I have lost worse before. Hours later, while he faced the board upstairs, Maya waited in the lobby, pacing in silence. Her phone kept vibrating messages, headlines, photos of her and Ethan at the gala, splashed across social media with captions like, "Fake love, real scandal." When the elevator doors finally opened, Ethan walked out, his face pale but steady. "They want a statement," he said. "Public apology. Damage control. What will you say?" He met her eyes. The truth they will not expect. Before she could ask what he meant, security guards arrived, escorting reporters toward the exits. One of them shouted, "Mr. Ward, is it true your fiancé was paid to play the role?" Ethan stopped. The crowd fell silent, cameras aimed at his face. He took a slow breath and said clearly, "No, she was never paid to pretend to love me. I was the one pretending. She was real from the start." The flash of cameras blinded them both. Maya's throat closed as she watched him walk past without another word, the line between lie and truth now completely gone. That night she returned to the penthouse, numb. The city outside roared with headlines and judgment. She found Ethan's office door open, his tie discarded on the desk. He looked up when she entered. "You should not be here," he said quietly. "It will only make it worse." "I am not leaving you alone in this," she said. He shook his head. "Maya, you do not understand. They will dig through everything, your brother, your past, your family. I cannot let them destroy you too." She stepped closer. "You are not the only one who knows how to fight, Ethan." For a moment, neither moved. The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder echoing through the room. And for the first time since they met, Ethan looked truly vulnerable. "Then tell me, Maya," he said softly. "When this is over, when the cameras stop, will you still be here?" She did not answer with words. Instead, she reached for his hand, her fingers trembling but sure. "Yes," she whispered, "even when it all falls apart." Outside, lightning split the sky wide open, like the truth finally breaking free. The storm outside raged through the night, and by morning, every news outlet in the country carried the same story: Ethan Ward's fake engagement exposed. Clips of their gala appearances replayed on endless loops. Commentators debated whether Maya Lopez had been a victim or an accomplice. Every word was a blade. Maya sat on the edge of the couch, phone buzzing nonstop. Messages poured in: old coworkers, strangers, journalists. She had turned them all off. The silence hurt less than the noise. When Ethan finally stepped out of his office, he looked exhausted. His tie was gone, his eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. "The board suspended me," he said simply. "Pending investigation." Maya's heart sank. "Ethan, I am so sorry." He shook his head. "Do not apologize. I knew this would happen the moment I said the truth." He hesitated, then added, "I could have denied everything and kept the company, but I could not stand there and let them call you a liar." Tears filled her eyes. "You should not have done that for me." "I did not do it for you," he said quietly. "I did it because it was right." By noon, reporters crowded outside the building. The story had exploded beyond control: videos, interviews, speculation. Someone had leaked more details: photographs of the signed contract, copies of payment transfers, even her brother's hospital records. Maya's hands shook as she read the headlines. "The billionaire's bargain bride. Charity worker or con artist." Her voice broke. "They are going after Daniel now." Ethan took her phone, set it aside, and said firmly, "Pack a bag. We are leaving the city tonight." "What? You cannot just run away?" "I am not running," he said. "I am taking responsibility. The foundation is hosting its annual press gala tomorrow. I am going to face them there." Maya stared at him. "After everything they have said?" "Yes." He met her eyes. "Because truth only matters if you say it out loud." The next evening, the ballroom was once again filled with lights, cameras, and tension thick enough to choke on. Ethan stood at the podium, the crowd buzzing with whispers. Maya stayed near the back, her heart pounding. When the room quieted, he began to speak. "Many of you know me as a man who builds things: companies, deals, empires. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that the things worth building are not made of glass and steel. They are made of trust." The audience shifted uneasily, reporters scribbling notes. I did sign a contract, Ethan continued, but not to deceive anyone. I did it to save a woman who had no reason to trust a man like me. What started as business taught me something no success ever could. He looked toward the back of the room, his eyes finding Maya's. It taught me what honesty feels like, what courage looks like, and what love actually means. A murmur ran through the crowd. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. This is my resignation letter from Ward Holdings. Effective immediately. The company will continue without me, but I will not continue without my integrity. Cameras flashed like lightning. Some gasped, some applauded, others simply watched in disbelief. Maya could not breathe. As the applause rose, Ethan stepped down from the stage and walked straight toward her. The crowd parted instinctively. He stopped a few feet away, the room holding its breath. I am sorry I dragged you into my world, he said softly, but I will never be sorry for meeting you. Tears welled in her eyes. You just gave up everything. He smiled faintly. Then maybe it is time to start over with something real. And right there, in front of the people who had doubted them, he reached for her hand, not as part of a deal, not for the cameras, but because he wanted to. The applause swelled again, not for the billionaire, not for the scandal, but for the man who had chosen truth over power, and for the woman who had reminded him how to be human. Weeks passed. The story that had once dominated every headline began to fade, replaced by new scandals and fresher gossip. Ethan's name still appeared in articles, the billionaire who walked away, but the tone had changed. What had started as ridicule turned into reluctant respect. He had lost everything most men would fight to keep, yet somehow he seemed freer than ever. Maya returned to her small apartment, this time with enough money to cover Daniel's treatments. The hospital had received an anonymous donation the week after the press gala. Ethan never admitted it, but she knew. Daniel's surgery went perfectly. When he walked again for the first time, he whispered, "You can stop worrying now, Maya. Everything is okay." But she was not okay, not without him. Every morning, she caught herself reaching for her phone, hoping for a message that never came. She watched interviews, waited for sightings, but Ethan Ward had disappeared from the city entirely. No press conferences, no social media, no trace. It was as if he had erased himself from the empire he once ruled. Until one afternoon, an envelope arrived, no return address, only her name written in a familiar, steady hand. Inside was a ticket to the art gallery downtown and a single note. One last exhibit. Come if you can. E.W. The gallery was quiet when she arrived. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, dust motes dancing in the beams. Dozens of portraits lined the walls, each one capturing faces from the Foundation's community projects, the people Ethan had once helped. Nurses, children, elderly couples, volunteers. But in the center of the room stood one final piece, a framed photograph of Maya herself. She stepped closer, breath catching in her throat. It was from the night of the gala, the moment she had looked at Ethan under the chandeliers, unguarded and real. Below it, a small plaque read, "For the woman who reminded me that love cannot be contracted." A voice came from behind her. "You came." She turned. Ethan stood near the doorway, no longer in a suit, just a simple white shirt and gray jacket. The city lights from outside framed him, softer, warmer than she remembered. "I almost did not," she said quietly. "I thought you were gone." "I was," he admitted. "I needed to learn who I was without everything else." She looked around at the portraits. "You built all this?" "I rebuilt it," Ethan said. "The Foundation owns this gallery now. Every donation goes to the people we once pretended to care about. This time it is real." Maya smiled through the tears forming in her eyes. "You did not have to prove anything, Ethan." He stepped closer. "I was not trying to prove anything. I was trying to find my way back to you." For a moment, the world stilled. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, the same one from their first contract meeting. But inside now was a different ring, a simple band of gold. "This time," he said softly, "no contracts, no pretending. Just us, if you will have me." Maya's breath caught. She nodded, tears spilling freely. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. In 12-2 example was Rives of Life for God Planes. And be seer on the rating of the baited 2. Ethan smiled and slid the ring onto her finger. The crowd in the gallery, once silent, began to applaud softly, the same people whose lives they had helped. now witnessing a promise born out of truth. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "No more pretending," he said. "Hold me like you mean it," she whispered, echoing the words that had started it all. He smiled. "I always did." Outside, the rain began to fall again, soft, cleansing, like the world was starting over with them. And for the first time, their story was not about a contract or redemption or scandal. It was simply about love, real, imperfect, and finally free.